Welcome back and welcome to Act 4. I decided a good title for this act would be Taking It All In and Dealing with It, because the terms and concepts that fit with these movies really relate to how we interact and get information about our world, and then what we do with that information once we've got it. So we can think about again how we relate to our world from the biological, the psychological, and the social perspective. From the biological perspective, we're thinking about the brain. The information in the textbook about the tools of discovery helps give us some context or a little bit of background information related to how we know what we know. And so then, what did we discover? Well, we discovered a number of different systems, and then within those systems, a number of different components of the brain, including the brain stem, the pieces of which relate to our survival functions, the limbic system, which relates to emotions and drives. So, again, physiological components of some psychological things we've talked about. Then there's your cerebral cortex, which includes control and information processing centers. So as you watch the various movies, I want you to think about the material from the textbook in terms of the different parts of the brain that might be involved in a character's behavior. And how does this idea of our brain being split and communicating across the different sides, how would that affect behavior? Does it relate to behavior? Another topic that relates to each of the movies we'll watch is this idea of cultural influences. So, culture are the behaviors, ideas, attitudes, values, and traditions shared by a group. And we could talk about culture in a geographic sense, which outsourced really highlights differences and highlights a particular geographic culture. But we can also think about culture in terms of a particular point in time. So, Music Within, the prize winner of Defiance, Ohio, and Rear Window are each set in a different time frame that lets us think about the different aspects of cultures from that perspective, including things like norms or the rules for accepted and expected behavior. So, as you watch the different movies, you can think about, are the norms in that geographic culture different from or similar to the United States? Or are the norms for that particular point in time different from or similar to our current time? Another aspect of culture, especially when we get to the geographic senses, is it more individualistic or is it more collectivistic? You read about that in the textbook and the different aspects of individualistic versus collectivistic cultures. And then as you watched Outsourced, if you watch Outsourced, you can think about how that might relate to the culture of India. And again, if we're talking about different cultures in time or different times having different cultures, it highlights the idea that cultures change over time. So as you watch those movies set in different times, you can think about not only how is it different, but what does that mean about as far as changes go. So cultural influences in some ways help us bridge into social influences on behavior. And I want to focus on a couple very specific psychological constructs, one being aggression. So, aggression in our discipline is defined as a physical or verbal behavior which is intended to hurt or destroy. Each of the movies has at least one character that you could think about in terms of this idea of aggression. Music Within is the character of Mike. In Outsourced, you could ask yourself if the boss is behaving in a way that's aggressive. In Prize Winner, you could ask, is Kelly as the father aggressive? I'm not going to tell you the particular character I'm thinking about in Rear Window, though, because I don't want to spoil it from you. So then, as we understand aggression, as we think about those different characters, we can think about, is there a biological influence here? Prize Winner in particular might highlight particular biological influences on behavior, whereas the other movies might help us think about the different psychological influences on behavior. The frustration aggression principle can be a really particularly helpful frame to think about. Is Mike in Music Within aggressive because some of it, or the boss in Outsourced more frustrated because they haven't been able to achieve some goal? Is that what's leading to their aggression? Finally, the last common concept across the movies is attraction, which we see different pairs of characters in different aspects of attraction. As you think about proximity and the mere exposure effect, it might draw you to Outsourced and the relationship there. But for each movie, you can think about, is this consistent with what our book says about the psychological elements of attraction? And is the love or is the attraction there portrayed as passionate or companionate, or how is this portrayed given our book's discussion of romantic loves? So that said, we'll move on in the next video to talk about some other concepts that'll be more specific to the movies.